Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Crystal Cline. Crystal is running for Warren County Sheriff in our November election.
Yes.
Crystal, the first question I ask every candidate is, why do you want to do this?
I ask myself that question all the time.
I know. Everyone asks them. Go ahead.
I know. No, so I have been a public servant right here in Front Royal for 22 plus years.
Right.
And myself, I've gone through 5 or 6 different chiefs of police, and I've seen a couple different sheriffs, and I thought I would retire from the Front Royal Police Department. I've got 22 years in.
Right,
I've got
you're getting close. You're getting close.
A few years left.
You must have started when you were awful young.
Yeah. Well, we won't talk about age now, but I think everybody knows I just had my 50th birthday. But,
right.
But no, so I'm running because I do believe that I can impact this community in a positive way.
Okay.
I believe that I can build back the trust and respect of the agencies, law enforcement. Unfortunately, when one police officer, one agency is perhaps not doing things like the rest of the agencies around or something, we all get a black eye.
Sure.
So when there is an integrity issue, we all get a black eye on that. Everybody kind of lumps us into one pot. I have led a really great career here in Front Royal, and I have a few more years to go, and I think I could make a positive impact.
All right. So what kind of things do you think the direction that we should be going in?
So I think that we need to get back to giving police services. I believe that we have a huge drug problem here in Warren County. We had over 60 overdose deaths last year, and I feel that we need to put a lot of resources towards that. Pulling out of the drug task force, I think, is one of the biggest issues that we have now, because it left this whole area high and dry. And we had to reevaluate in what we were going to do at the Front Royal Police Department. So we were left with 3 people. And when you're doing large-scale investigations in federal cases, you need more than 3 people in order to perform those cases. And so we had to kind of regroup there, and we swore in all of our criminal investigators to help with surveillances if there's a search warrant, if there was a lot of interviews and things to do. We swore in all of our criminal investigators to help with that team so that we can continue to push and fight against the drug use in our community.
Right. It's a big issue. Of course, we're so used to watching law enforcement on television where they solve the world's crimes in 60 minutes. And I don't think people really realize how long it takes to do any investigation. Or, we're finding that out looking, well, why don't you write about this or why don't you write about that? It takes staff. It takes time. It's just not like instantly you hear a hearsay and all of a sudden now it's a story. And it's the same way with what you've been.
Yeah, the judicial system moves very, very slowly.
It is it is slow. Let's just talk real quick about the drug situation. Just kind of a gleaning from things that are in our whole country, not just in Front Royal, Warren County. But it seems like when there are arrests, and we seem arresting the same people over and over again.
It's generational.
And it is generational. But we have a revolving door that the police do their part, but the courts seem to just plead everything out or don't want to prosecute everyone.
So I've had actually some big discussions, and it's not just drug cases, but even on sex offense cases or malicious wounding cases and stuff like that, and what people don't know is that there are guidelines that have to be adhered to. And it's not something that the police set up or law enforcement sets up or anything like that. It's not just as easy as, we throw people in jail, we get them right back out, and, there's no processes. There are processes involved. So when you're talking about the drug task force and fighting the drug issue, and we're seeing the same people, it is hard to kick the habit of drugs, especially when we're talking about the heroin, crack cocaine, fentanyl, press pills, scramble, all of these things. They're very, very addictive. And when Virginia as a whole, I feel, gets an F in mental health, but also in rehabilitating and helping our addicted folks, whether that be alcohol or drugs. And we don't do anything to assist them. So we can throw them in jail for 6 months, a year. When they get out, if there is no help for them and they haven't sought treatment for that, what do you think that they're going to do? go back to
right,
drugs, and
go
we're
right.
going to arrest them again.
Sure.
So I know that I have been, since I've been in this for over 22 years, the same people I was dealing with on the road before, we're still dealing with the same people. They're just 20 years older.
Right.
And then now that they have kids, and some have been addicted to drugs as well at birth, they're going to have some mental health and addiction issues as well. We're now dealing with those people, and it's really hard. But when we don't have the treatment and we don't have that, what do we do with them after we arrest them? That's where our problem is.
Right.
So I'm hoping with implementation of the drug court, we can get where there is a little bit more. So go to rehab, that's fine. But when you come back to front row and you're with
Where's
your
your
old
support?
friends and your family
yep.
and that type of thing, you have to have that check-in. You have to have that check-in with that counselor, that check-in with, the courts, your probation officer, all of these things. So it's a team effort, a collaboration, like coming together and fighting that. So, yeah, we can think in our minds it would be very simple to blame law enforcement or blame the courts or blame the jails or all those things, but it's a little bit more
society
difficult.
and whole in a way.
It's a little bit more convoluted.
Yeah, it's not a 60-minute problem.
But I will tell you, if we stop fighting the fight, we're going to have an open-air drug market right out here on the streets. And some people might say that we have that currently.
Yeah.
But if we don't continue to put detectives and people that are fighting that locally, not Northern Virginia, locally, and keep on saying we might be right around the corner, we might be looking at you and sending and fighting this battle, it's going to be a lot worse than where we are now.
Sure.
We should not have 60 overdose deaths, especially with the introduction of Narcan,
Right.
which is readily available.
Yeah, now over the counter.
Yes.
Just yesterday I had the two ladies that are coordinating the drug court. And so, we've been talking about that for, seems like Beth Rivas and the chief have been talking about drug court for a couple years, and now it's been approved by the state. We have two coordinators, one in Shenandoah County, one in Warren County, and of course we have one in Winchester, and that's been there, 7 years. So we have some track record of how successful they've been, and they're looking at at least a 50% success rate, which is pretty good. 50%.
It's better than nothing.
It's better than
At
nothing.
least
And
someone somewhere is getting the help that they need.
So it has come, and so hopefully that'll be somewhere. But you did bring up a good point, and that's mental health. We are lacking in mental health issues, and police officers now are mental health coordinators or advisors or something. That's something too. That's just seems like that's just not here. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and I feel that it is getting worse. And the number of mental health calls back 20 years ago, we had to keep on looking up Virginia code on what it is, our procedure, and how to handle these cases. And so then it started it's more and more prevalent. So, then after a while we were handling one every 3 months, and then it was like one a month, and then it was one a week. And then currently
one a day.
We're almost seeing one a day, if not two.
Yeah.
From Friday to Sunday, just this weekend, the Front Royal Police Department dealt with 8 mental health crisis and ECO, TDO situations.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of manpower because we once it turns into an ECO, we sit with them.
I was going to say, I've heard that it sounds like it's not just writing them a ticket. It's
not dropping them off at the hospital
You have
either.
to stay with them, and that ties up an officer for sometimes hours and hours and hours.
We have to call them in, so we have officers that are working on their off days. But you're sitting at a hospital outside the door for 12 hours, your 12-hour shift. You get relieved by a night shift person, another 12 hours, and that can go on for 72 hours, where we are paying overtime to staff someone to sit at a hospital outside of a hospital room because there's not enough beds. There's not enough beds for them to go to. Western State, they need, which is our state mental health facility, we need more beds. We're always waiting. They never have a bed open.
Never having a bed open.
So we're driving to Williamsburg, to Petersburg, to Catawba, to, all of these places, which we do have to transport. That's more time off of the street here in Front Royal. So I do implore Virginia that we need to make some big changes in where we are with mental health.
Right. I'm sure our COVID didn't help getting people changing their routines just messes people up,
It does.
So what's your take on, this all sounds like community policing, and which is a big push statewide, It is.
Building relationships.
And it's all about that. Police officers can't do these things by themselves.
It takes a village.
Well, we've heard that before.
It does.
So what kind of some of the first thing, let's say you get elected and come January, it is January 1st. What are some of the first things you're going to do?
Well, fortunately, I have been lucky enough to work with some really great people in the last 22 years. And I built relationships with these people. So anybody will know, I mean, I am well known in this community.
Right.
Because I do a lot in this community.
Sure.
And
we see you everywhere.
Yes. But I'm a public servant, and I do believe that I was put on this great earth and to help people and be a public servant. So I have built these relationships, and I'm going to continue to build those relationships because, like you said, law enforcement can't do it just on their own because we can't be everywhere at one time. But once you build that trust and that respect and those relationships, it's easier for people to come on board and to assist us with these things. Sure. So if we go out there and we're just rough and tough and put the fear of God in everybody, they're not that likely to come with information to solve a crime, to get involved. We need people to get involved.
Right.
And we need people to report things that are going on. You know,
the old see something, say something, right?
Yes. You know, in that
Sure.
avenue. But, you know, if you see a hand-to-hand, you know, we get desensitized sometimes
Yes.
where, oh, there's another drug deal, and then we don't do anything because
Right.
it becomes common.
Right.
And so it's continuing with the relationships that I've built and moving forward. We need more uniformed officers and uniformed cruisers on the streets, because what that does is that people can see, hey, there's a cop, there's someone that I can talk to. And if they see people in their neighborhoods driving around and being visible, that's where we can meld together.
Right.
You know,
I think it is a lot of visibility.
that,
People
yes.
see that, and again, I know both the police and the sheriff's office has been doing a lot of things that just aren't what you would consider police work, like going to the library, reading books, and showing people that, hey, we're just regular people too. I mean, that's a good thing that we need to make sure that
it has
a big impact.
It does have a big impact because you're building those relationships, but it's also the education piece. Right. And, you know, being in the schools and doing DARE program, you know, that's been watered down a little bit. There needs to be let's get back to the curriculum and doing it full force and putting everything that we have into it.
Right.
Let's continue with the DARE graduations and the contests and bringing the parents in and give them that night where they can be proud. Sure. And they've graduated and got the certificate and that type of thing is
at that age, it makes a big influence on people in their life.
It's elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, these are their
Graders,
first moments in contact
Yeah.
with cops, because we're big, bad, and scary. You know, when we, you know, in our full uniforms and boots and guns and, you know, all of the gear that we have and stuff. Yes, it's
can be
very, very
intimidating.
important.
Yeah, that's why the state police wear those, I call them Smokey Bear hats.
Yes,
because it's very intimidating when they get out in their tailored uniform and they strut to your car.
But if we're in uniform and we're in marked cars, even the adults are going to feel a lot
No
more
one likes
at
a police
ease.
officer following them around town.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
You're right. Well, let's go back. One more thing too, as you well know, there's been some incidents everywhere in the state and here in our county where something bad happens and it goes to the person in charge. Mm-hmm.
Well, it reflects on all law enforcement when something like that happens.
The person that's in charge takes the heat.
Yes.
And whether they can do anything about it or not.
But there's a couple reasons for that. Is that the top person, whether it be, you know, the chief or the sheriff or the county administrator or the town manager, et cetera, is that when they come in, they set a culture. They set a culture of what their expectations are and, you know, what policies and procedures and everything, and that, you know, the expectation is that I am going to set through what I believe in, how I want to conduct myself. I want full training, you know, all of these things, a continuing of training. Mm-hmm. And it starts at the top. So who else would you blame for some of the things that are happening on the street, whether it be, you know, cops are very type A personality. So, you know, they believe that they know it all.
Sure.
But when you're nasty to the public and you have this, you lead, with I know it all and nobody can tell me anything type of mentality, there's going to be, issues there. The culture set at the top, and in the end, that is who needs to take responsibility for what happens out on the street.
I know I get blasted all the time. It's your newspaper. Why did you put that in there?
Yes.
I didn't write that, but same thing. So let's talk real quick about two things. In fact, tonight it's going on at the Board of Supervisors. The county sheriff's department is going to be getting their accreditation awards. And I know the police department is working on theirs at the same time. This accreditation, though, is a big deal. I mean, and so once we've got it, what I've heard, it's hard to keep it. Going, because both the police and the sheriff's office have had this in the distant past.
It's time consuming.
But so tell us a little bit about what you.
But accreditation is like every agency has their general orders, their policies and procedures that they go through. And the state, whether it be Vallepsi or even actually CALEA, is every year they review the policies, because even law enforcement has evolved in 20 years.
Yeah.
You cannot police the same way you did 25 years ago to how you're policing now.
Yeah, they used to carry a blackjack around and smack you upside the head.
So I never had one of those. But
before your time.
Everything evolves, and so do your policies and procedures. So these organizations are set in place as legislation changes and how procedures and how you respond to certain things changes, they want you to make sure that you're keeping your general orders up to date. So whenever a new chief, new sheriff, or anybody comes in, that is probably one of the first things that they need to do is review what policies are in place and see if anything needs updating, because we know the book is like this big.
1,000 pages.
And so you look at it once and then you want to put it on the shelf and it collects dust and et cetera. So it's just keeping you accountable to keeping up with the changes that are happening.
Every July, how many new laws do we get on the books?
Yeah,
Hundreds.
Yes.
And again, the next year they change again. And they change either back to the old ones or to the new ones. It's a battle.
But I'll tell you, I've been through 6 chiefs, and that is one of the first things. So we go through, and everybody has to do policy review. And we have Power DMS, so we're constantly throwing any changes. We could throw it out to our entire staff, and then they have to read it, and they have to sign off on it that they have indeed read it. And then we have trainings on our policies every month, just to make sure that we keep up on that.
Right.
And then we also task our sergeants with picking a training topic that they do with their shift. So, bank robberies, I don't know, it was probably about 10 years ago, but we had a lot of bank robberies around the area.
We had one across the street here.
Yeah, and yes, we did. More recent than some of the others, but how do you respond to a bank robbery?
Yeah, especially when they don't happen every day.
No, but you have to keep on training so that when you are responding to something, it could be very little or it could be a big incident, that we're all on the same page of how we're going to respond and best handle that situation.
Well, it brings up a lot of things that we could talk about, but anything else you have some events coming up?
I do, but there's a couple things that I feel passionate about.
Oh, sure.
So I do want to mention some of those things.
We want you to get it out.
Yeah, so I do, there's a couple things. I am very conservative when it comes to the budget. I myself, probably much to the dismay of my husband a little bit, but I have a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet for everything. So whether it be the home budget or my budgeting, at the police department, whatever. And so I do believe there needs to be accountability for every dime that we spend. I think it's prudent, whether that is my paycheck. I want to know where my money's going.
Sure.
What I can't stand is that most of our money goes towards food, because you don't get to see that at the end of the month.
Well,
there's nothing tangible, So, but it's that, and so I know it's a little bit more work to go through your checkbook or your bank account to see exactly how much you spend at Amazon or Walmart or Target or Martin's or all these food stores and stuff. But you can't make decisions moving forward if you don't know where you've been.
Right.
So I like seeing the budget broken out, and I like seeing that for the sheriff's office. I like sheriff's office. You have your communications division. I know exactly what animal control is costing our county. The school resource officer, the court services. You can go in there and know exactly what you're spending in each of those.
Sure.
So if we have a huge increase in, say, court services, I'd be looking at the supervisor over there and saying, hey, what's going on? Does Deputy whoever, Smith, need 10 new uniforms, in a year? Your uniform budget is way out of whack. I can pinpoint that. Gas, we can monitor how gas, if we have that line item is broken out, why is it that, maybe our school resource officers and their gas that we spend, there is increasing more than it is in some of these other areas. So when I hear about consolidating into one lump sum, there's less accountability there. Right. And the last thing that I think our community needs is getting into a situation of trusting that the right things are being done. We already fell for that when the whole EDA scandal came about. We certainly don't want to do that now. Right. So is it a little bit more to put the detail of what that Amazon order is? Or, if there is $10,000 being spent, for canine care for a year. Well, I would like to know, what is that being spent on? Is it just dog toys and food? Is there so much more? Because that seems like a large amount.
Sure.
When you're talking about a $19,000 budget line item for cleaning and janitorial services, when that service is already provided by the county and isn't paid there, I want to know what is the breakout of that. So I think the budget really needs to be looked at, because I do think we have a decrease in services, but our budget keeps on increasing. We're over budget the last two budget periods. Why is that? From the budget that was adopted to the budget that, the expenditures at the end of the fiscal year. I want to know why. There's been a couple things out there about, do we have animal control? Yes, we have 2 deputies that are certified in animal control. What we don't have is a division that is solely for animal control calls. They are busy. Our county is rural, and we need to get back on responding in a knowledgeable and procedural way for animal control officers. Not everybody can do animal control. Sure. You can't train your whole department to be animal control because you have special tools. You have to have catch bars. You have to have cages. Yeah. You have to have vehicles with the that have air conditioned cages and stuff, because just recently it hit that we had a hoarding situation. Right. You have to have vehicles in order to transport those dogs. Right. And when we have one vehicle that is set up with a full-time animal control, and we're slated for 4. We're slated for 4 on those. I want to know where are those other vehicles? Why do we not have 4 dedicated to this? When we have animal control that's responding to accidents and to other calls for service, that means that they're not handling these calls. So I get a lot of that talking to the people, is that, I called for animal control. I had one lady who said, I called about an injured cat, and it took them a long time to get here. They did come in this instance and then looked, and the cat wasn't injured enough, and they drove off. And she's like, what do I do with it? So I think getting back up to stuff with having a full animal control is a big issue. I also think that getting our SROs up to the 10 that we're slotted for. The school board, they pay for either 1 or 2 of those school resource positions, plus our taxes went up a penny back, I think, in 2018.
Just for that.
Just for school resource officers. So there is no reason that we don't have 10 school resource officers, that you have 1 school resource officer that is dedicated to that school. Once again, you can't have detectives and patrol officers and say, your school resource officer just go by there, walk through one time, and then go do your regular job. We need people that are dedicated to these areas. It's the same thing with court services. You have court service people that go to the courts to do security, and that's what they do, and that's what their job, that's what they know, and that's what they're good at. School resource officer, you need to do the same thing. It can't be this multitasking thing because then you're never really that great at that one thing.
Like a jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah.
The school resource officer is very important because it's relationship building.
Right.
And that's what this job is. Law enforcement is relationship building with everybody. So if you have one dedicated school resource officer going into that school, the kids are going to get to know you. The teachers are going to get to know you. The guidance counselors are going to get to know you. I spent 10 years in criminal investigations, and we worked a lot of cases with the school personnel. We knew who the guidance counselors were. We knew who, some of the teachers were, and they helped us with these cases because the relationship is built. We have some heinous crimes happening against children. And it happens every day, whether that's just physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. It's happening to our kids in our communities. And we need to be there for them. But it's building those relationships and having that dedicated person that our kids see every single day, all day.
Right.
High-fiving, knuckle bumping.
Well, and they get a different perspective as far as law enforcement. They're not the big.
But you build those relationships then when they get older.
Yeah.
They're going to have a positive relationship with law enforcement.
Right. What else? Before I cut you off here.
I know. I thought we could talk for hours.
We can. No, we got plenty of tape. Let's talk. You got some events coming up where people can come, and I know you're available. I talk to you all the time
anytime.
on this. Every time I see her, hey, Crystal, come here, and she comes over and we talk. And you're not afraid of the camera at the parades, Speaking tonight,
because you make me.
I put you on the spot.
You're like, oh.
I know. One more time. But you do have. I think these meet and greets that candidates have are important to go to them, whether you like or dislike the candidate. It goes back to building relationships, trying to find out something about candidates because it's important when it comes time to elect. Because if you don't vote, you don't get out there, then I kind of say, well, you really don't have much of a say,
Right.
So these meet and greets. So do you have anything coming up in the near future?
I do. So I'm going to be in the Fireman's Parade on Wednesday. We are going to do a meet and greet event at Osteria Maria coming up. I don't know if the date is set, but we're shooting for July 26th.
Okay.
And I've met quite a few of the HOAs so far, and I learned something new at every single one of them.
Right.
Because that is one of the avenues that I actually researched, because in Front Royal, in the town, when we respond, we don't have the private neighborhoods. So it's a different perspective on response in these private neighborhoods.
Sure.
And I've really got a kick out of going to those meetings.
We got like Shenandoah Farms and Shenandoah Shores and Cline. There's on all these, like you say, they are unique.
Yeah, Blue Mountain, which is
unique
absolutely
situations.
Beautiful. If you haven't been up there in their, I guess you would call it their clubhouse, I'm going to say right now that is my favorite view in
you can
the
see
entire
all the way into West Virginia,
Warren
can't you?
County. Oh my gosh, absolutely beautiful.
I tell people all the time, they stand in line here to go onto the Skyline Drive. I said, if you just turn right and go out Happy Creek Road and turn and go up across Blue Mountain and back, you'll see more than you ever will on Skyline.
340 towards Luray and stuff. It's stunning.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't want to stand in the line for hours going 5 miles an hour going down Skyline Drive. I said, go up that road. It's better.
But we do have our big end of campaign fundraiser, and that's going to be October 7th. So we are, it's kind of a surprise location right now, but it is a stunning facility as well. It is not at the fire department. It is local, but it is, I'm super excited about that.
Good.
It's going to be phenomenal.
All right. So
we are also going to have a family event out at the sports arena out on Fort Valley. So that's in the early planning stages, and that's going to be in August.
Okay.
So, but I will tell you, you said I'm always available. So
Sure.
I love coffee dates, which I've had quite a few. I don't miss a meal, so I do have lunches, which is great, but it's just a time to chit-chat. I've also been invited to, someone's like, hey, I'm going to have a group of friends at my house. Do you mind coming and just talking to all of us? Absolutely.
Sure.
I talked to some retired nurses. They meet every week, and I was able to have breakfast with them. So it's just reaching out and saying, hey, can I just talk to you for just a second? You're not bothering me because this is what I like to do.
Sure.
This is who I am. So.
And you have a job that you just love doing.
Yes.
I mentioned real quick. You did say you've been there 22 years, and I do know that you started out at the bottom.
Yes, as a civilian.
And then worked.
Wasn't even a cop.
Right.
Didn't even want to be a cop.
Right.
But that
I
is.
heard rumors that your husband encouraged you to be a cop.
No. No, so I started off as a civilian doing domestic violence work. So I would take all of the police reports and look in there for any domestic violence, sexual assault, and that type of thing, and then do a follow-up to make sure that they had all the resources, that they had someone to explain what the court system is like, because that is scary. If they needed someone to go to court with them, we were available for that, how to get protective orders and what the 3 different protective orders were, and doing that. And then Chief Rakucci at the time came to me and said, I have an opening on my patrol shift. I think that should be you. You're great at community policing. I think you would be fabulous. And I was stunned. I was like, because I never thought about being a cop.
Sure.
I grew up, a child of a single mom who worked all the time. So I was probably, the very farthest thing from being cop material back then. But I think it gives me perspective, being a juvenile and, got into a little bit of trouble as a kid. But, who doesn't?
Right.
But that was probably the best decision I made is to go that path. And I'm very goal oriented. I like to look forward. Where do I want to be in 3 and 5 years? And I just kept on setting the goals and then achieving those. So I became a supervisor in 2014. And that was super important to me because I was the first female sergeant ever at the Front Royal Police Department. And then I've been captain, the first captain, female captain, for the last 6.5, almost 7 years. I guess we're coming around. In October, it'll be 7 years that I've been captain. So currently, I supervise all of the patrol division and criminal investigations, the drug task force, our SWAT team, crisis negotiation, K-9, honor guard. So all operations, that's the side of the house that I'm on. Currently, and it's been fun. So I have the knowledge base in order to move forward in this position. It's not been an easy path by any means, but it's been so rewarding. I have no regrets over this career path at all. I thought once I graduated college, I'd be going to some big financial firm, and I did that for a short while. I worked at a brokerage company. And I did that until I had my first child and wanted to do all the mom things right. And so I left there to be a stay-at-home mom before getting this job at the police department. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Right. Well,
it works for me.
Well, people will be out meeting you between now. The early voting is in September, I think. It's hard to believe it'll be here
I think
before
45 days before November 7th.
22nd or something like that, I recall. So early voting, then you'll have these events, and the election is November 7th. So if you haven't registered to vote, there's still time to get registered, vote. And we have several town council seats coming up. Yeah, we have the sheriff, we have the Commonwealth attorney, we have the treasurer. So there's several offices that people need to become aware of, and
there is one more event that I'm looking forward to, and it's these town hall debates and stuff. I would like nothing more than to be able to do a couple of those coming up. And so I'm hoping the chamber puts on, theirs that they usually do annually, but I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, good. Well, we'll keep you posted, and hopefully, again, we hope you come back here in another month or so,
I appreciate you having me.
Update us on what's going on in the campaign. We have the sheriff in, and we try to get every candidate to come in so people can hopefully glean some information in these conversations. People always say, well, you didn't ask this hard question. You didn't have to. I said, that's not really what this is about. This is more of a candid conversation so that you can glean some personal knowledge or just some, body language maybe, if nothing else, to see how people react and glean some information about all the candidates. Right. And so we appreciate you when you come in, and your door is always open.
It is.
All right.
So, I do have to say, don't call the police department.
Oh, yes,
if
please
it was an election campaign thing, so
Right.
I am on Facebook. I do have a web page. I have
We'll
an
stick
email.
those links here in
Yeah.
the story below
Yeah.
and let people see that and get a hold of her. But please reach out
Yeah.
to all the candidates and to Crystal here and see where she stands. If you have a particular question, if you don't ask it, you're never going to find
That
out
is
the
right.
answer. And I think
And
that's what we need.
assumptions are the worst.
Yeah. And then people will read one thing on social media, especially,
Right.
and form an opinion, and there's no truth in it at all.
Right.
So reach out when you have a question. Ask. That's what we want.
But I do appreciate you having me on. I apologize, it's taken a little bit long. I had some medical issues with family members
Right, I
and stuff.
understand
So
that.
I do appreciate you being
We're
understanding
patient.
about that.
We are. We're patient. The clock was running close to 10. I said, oh, maybe I better call her and see what's going on. There she was. She showed up. Appreciate it, Crystal.
So, no, I
Thanks
thank
again
you.
so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.